This is important. You need to understand first fundamentals, this, what we spoke just now. That in order to bring manifestation of something you like, you need to already own it. You need to already own it. You see something, you feel something, that's how you want it to live. You already need to feel you're living it. That's the only way. Right now, in this very present moment, you're already living it now. Not pinning it on a fridge. Not that, not the secret. Not the, limo, villa, and looking at it like a dog with the tongue dangling down here, every day, one day, No, this is poor man's supper. You have to already know in your heart, truly, not faking it, that whatever you want to live, you're already living it now. And I know it's not easy, but that's where the imagination part kicks in, you see?
I have a question which weaves maybe together what we've spoken in these last days anyway. So, but it's in a way a predicament for me. And it's in a way the question of how to bring from imagination down to manifestation, which is a part of my story anyway. And although there is something happening, of course, on the field of manifestation, I'm feeling there would be much more possible if there would be one thing, not even solved, but if I would sink deeper into that. And that's, in a certain way, the fear of death, or the fear of losing something. And I have the feeling, how to say that, there's a certain contraction, and I'm on a threshold of something, and I don't know how to proceed so that this opens up. Because I feel there's a certain level, the deepening of creativity is not flowing if I'm not this feeling of fear, maybe. It's a deep-rooted fear. And it manifests in not so obviously. I feel it mainly when I'm feeling, for example, sick, or when there are bodily manifestations. So there's attachment to this, or this is a fear of sickness. So there's a kind of a chain happening. I feel certain sensations or manifest sickness or something, and something in me contracts. And I know all these theories about Brahman and the world and the ultimate and all that stuff. So the body is, you can view differently on this kind of thing. But on an existential level, I feel there's something not flowing, and it's connected to fear of death, creativity, manifest, all this kind of. But it's hard for me to. I don't know how to proceed with that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit, because there are now transformative times anyway. But I just feel a bit in a limbo with that. I don't know if I make myself clear.
Yeah, very clear.
Yeah. So
maybe let's retrace to where you have started, so that a little bit more clarity here first, to link the fear of death and, let's say, being on a precipice or on a threshold, but as if something holding you back, as if this. It's very clear. Also being somehow contracted in allowing the creativity to truly flow, all is connected. So this is clear. But just going back to where you have started, manifesting, imagination. Can you just clarify so that I connect the dots? So I don't want to guess now.
Yeah.
I want to see if that's what you meant. Is this manifesting in terms of living life you want to truly live to your capacity, right? To the fullness. In other words, how to bring that out into manifested form, right? For your life. So I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's I give it an overview here. That again, it now would require you to connect the dots. I will just speak to some of the aspects of how this is linked, but then you have to make sense out of it. How does that applies to your life? So what you speak to are these are universal, truly existential questions. So they're not pertinent to you, they're pertinent to absolutely everyone. Everyone in this room and beyond this room. See? It's a universal dilemmas. Universal dilemmas. All these, let's say, we narrow them down to the three, right? How to manifest life we want to live, how to be creative truly, to open up to the spirit of creativity, and how not to live under the shadow of the fear of death. And they're all interconnected, all of them interconnected. But in the interconnectedness, there are some stagely, let's say, what can be prioritized, what have to be understood and looked into. When it comes to the, let's say we'll begin with manifestation. When it comes to the imagination, when it comes to quality of life, what do we call quality of life and so forth. We could, of course, make it very, very simple, that there are some basic criteria for that. We don't need to kind of like hide behind some facade of how to, like as long as you're happy, doesn't matter, right? Like if you're happy, you can whistle and everything is fine. But bills need to be paid, this need to be done, right? Responsibilities need to be taken care of, right? All this is kind of makes it suddenly into a true ordeal. And there seems to be not enough time for creativity. There's not enough space to open up. So what is it? There's no easy answer from that. Because two things you need to understand with your level of already knowledge that you teach people yoga, at least fundamentals of yoga philosophy, right? How to tend to their bodies, like you are master teacher of yoga asanas, courses on teacher training courses, right? So it's not a small thing. Come on, it's like you launching kind of people year after year onto the path of yoga, we could say. So these fundamentals are by now should be really known by you. So this now therefore I'm not going to go into the real basic mechanics, but I want to remind some of this what perhaps somehow eludes you. Two aspects with regard to this. First of all, the most important thing is to be able to enjoy what one already has fully. So in other words, if one has the choice to enjoy what one have, or to be basically miserable to what one doesn't have. What will be your choice?
Well, first one.
Exactly. It's fairly straightforward. So already this is very clearly understood, but that is a rule of thumb principle as well. It's a principle of one of the fundamental laws, spiritual laws as well. So unless we are capable to truly enjoy what we already have, ideally, I would say, in every given situation, in all given situations, maybe sometimes it's okay, we can be given, as it were, a pass on getting out of whack with that. Sometimes it's like, feels as if life is a constant constantly being pinched. That's okay. But what we can afford is to allow a continued recrystallization of certain patterns that makes us feel inadequate in our skin. There are many idioms that we can use, like having a chip on a shoulder because of this, because of that. And all of us have these tendencies. All of us. All of us have some chip on a shoulder, like some kind of, it doesn't matter where one comes from. You could be a self-made man, completely and utterly. Self-made really came through years of building yourself, to kind of ascertaining yourself against all the odds. And then another guy, exactly like you there, is the son of a billionaire. But his chip on a shoulder is still chip on a shoulder. He has it already outlined for him, but it's just like he feels inadequate. Always not enough. I know it's a grotesquely vast example, right? Because it's inapplicable. But it is applicable. So that you understand, in grosso modo, there's no such thing that someone is given somehow an easy exit of this karmic situation, because none of us here exist, none of us here. This is a second understanding. Somehow, in a way that we should not be. This is fundamental law of karma. This is why the karma need to be understood here, and that in relation to everything, starting with relationships we form. Have you heard of that concept, Runanu Bandhana? Right? I'm sure if you read Robert Svoboda, Sadhguru talked about, you know what it means, Runanu Bandhana. It's the most important aspect in the karmic payout. Not in the sense what is done wrong. It's simply settling the bills. Runanu Bandhana, it's settling the bills. So you leave this, that, and then, okay, beginning of the month, bill need to be paid. Runanu Bandhana. Bills got to be paid. So this is what it is. It's something you own and something is being owned to you. In any transaction, on whatever level, this is what is happening. So no one is exempt. So in other words, none of us are here, none. Whether this is a complete gutter of life, or whether this is a completely top of the hierarchy of the pharaohs sitting up there, Anunnaki fed race, blah, 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 like David Icke will give you all the ins and outs, like all the royalty. It's the same thing. We all under the sun, we all are the same. Everyone has to pay out their karmic debt. Why? Because the God is resting. The law of karma is created, right? Who said that? One of the great beings said that once the creation was done, there had to be self-administering law. This is good. This is Maharishi's favorite way of putting it. Self-administering law. There has to be something which takes care of itself. God cannot always take care of stuff. Imagine. It would be a really, really not smart God if he put himself into the position of management. He needs to be as far away from it, somewhere really, really having a good time, you know? So, but how do you maintain everything? You create the karma. And the karma is the law that settles everything within itself. You see? So, fundamentally, this is got to be understood. I would even say, if this is not understood truly, not contemplated, enjoying for no reason is impossible. One will always be thrown back into misery because of certain expectations. You need to find joy in whatever it is possible, whenever it is possible. Of course, Ralph, I can go and start giving examples to kind of make me feel good, right? Like, well, feel good about myself giving these examples. You know, man, when I was in a cell, because I was in a cell, at least in the military, for being not a very disciplined soldier, I was sent into the disciplinary, you know, this and that. And when I was there, I wasn't, you know, very, very, you know, abiding by the command, because it was very nasty. I was young, stern, proud, and, you know. So they very quickly deal with you, you know. They put you in a singular cell. You don't want to be with other guys? You don't want to work and get up at 5 in the morning and, all right, singular cell. You know, the bed is metal, no mattress is given, nothing. It's locked to the wall. You sleep only 4 hours a day, 4 hours at night, okay? And then it's locked to the wall, okay? And there's no much room to stretch, you know? And if you're really, really not pleasing the guy, he will come, right, one of the guards, and throw a little bit of bleach on the floor, you know? So you're really done. So how can you find in these situations joy? You have to. Greatest lessons were learned. Like, if you ask me, what's paradise? I can tell you, I'm more or less living in a paradise. I have nothing to complain about my life. Of course, Dattatreya will tell you otherwise. We have constantly, you know, he comes after me and spoils my tea break, start telling me about the, you know, like how flowing wakefulness needs to, you know, like settle this. You know, I have to kind of tell him, don't worry. Astrologically, it's all cool. You know? It's all very good, you know. But I can also tell you that I've been in places which are literally hellish. Hell. Like the definition of hell, I was there. I know what it is like, you know, in every respect. So this is sort of like that contrast. But even in those moments, there were moments of sheer beauty, sheer clarity, appreciation, you know? Like a glass of water given where all water is salty. I was for 6 months like this, all across whole Central Asia, again as a young soldier, in Turkmenistan, in Black Desert, Karakum. We were in Kazanjik, which means the walk of wind. All weather formed there, you see? Then the wind started to blow from Afghanistan through Kapitdag mountain range of mountains, and the sky is covered with black sand, you know? So you eat bread with sand because it goes into the dough. And water is salty for everything, you know, salty water. So then suddenly you have a glass of water. I mean, this is like, give me a break. The best, like the best of the best of the best. So the definition is that I know what is good because I know what was in contrast to that. And I said this is not part of my answer. As I said, it all will make me feel good by telling you this story, right? But what I want you to understand here is this. It's missing, it's a blind spot on your part. Because you're supposed to launch people, right? You teach them the fundamentals of yogic philosophy. Every enjoyment has allocated not at the surface level of enjoyment. The reason why I could also be kind of gradually by my 57th year now, I could easily join the range of the, what are these who enjoy? The Epicureans, right? Epicureans? Yeah, the ones who like enjoyment more than suffering, you know? Right? From Stoics, right? I progressed from Stoics to Epicurean, you know? So I take great joy in whatever way I can take it. I'll take it, you know? But the understanding is there that that joy cannot be truly experienced unless something is being touched where the joy comes from. So this is, you need to redress that all the time. You see? So this is the adjustment. It's like brother to brother, you see? Like a pea in a field to pea in a field. Like you kind of like lost the plot and I'm reminding you, okay? Like you are Matsyendranath and I'm Gorakhnath, you're lost in Maya, I'm kind of like smack, smack, smack. Come on, wake up, man, smell the coffee. Or I'll kill all your 100 sons and skew them on the roof so you can really know the torment and then you will come out of this illusion of enjoyment. This is important. You need to understand first fundamentals, this, what we spoke just now. That in order to bring manifestation of something you like, you need to already own it. You need to already own it. You see something, you feel something, that's how you want it to live. You already need to feel you're living it. That's the only way. Right now, in this very present moment, you're already living it now. Not pinning it on a fridge. Not that, not the secret. Not the, limo, villa, and looking at it like a dog with the tongue dangling down here, every day, one day, No, this is poor man's supper. You have to already know in your heart, truly, not faking it, that whatever you want to live, you're already living it now. And I know it's not easy, but that's where the imagination part kicks in, you see? Not that you are imagining, because you see, imagination, as soon as we say imagination, it's already in the future, isn't it? It's in the future. It's not a John Lennon song, It's not that. It's not a John Lennon song, soap opera. Melancholy, kind of like wishful thinking. Imagine all the people and they all want like this. Yes, fantastic. Dream of the 60s. It's right now feeling it in your bones, right now, whatever that is, whilst simultaneously being completely detached. That's what earlier was spoken to. Earlier today, didn't we speak about it? We touched up on at the very end of the day, our first half a day discourse, remember? Remember that final addition before lunch? Because it's an importantly practical addition was with regard to, I gave the Degas, French painter, artist, personal kind of crush, right? Sort of like old love, first love. Every artist has, This is truly how it works. Truly how it works. Because you need to know at the level of the bone marrow that you already own this. Own it. When the next time you see the guy who is driving really, really expensive car, for example, I'm giving you a deliberately very superficial example, right? And he's full of it. And he parks this car and he comes out and there's a damsel and, like literally Gandhari just stepped out of heaven, like she moves and the whole creation goes like, even the palm trees go like, Feel happy for the guy. Feel happy if you feel happy, you see? Why? Not because, I'm the stoic, it's like, it's okay, guy. No. You enjoying as someone who knows the philosophy of yoga, there's no this guy, no me. Consciousness enjoying itself. It having a love. It having this. Yes, it's dramatic. It's terrifying. There's no fairness in heaven. None. In heaven, everyone is equal. In heaven, everyone who fought the battle of Kurukshetra, having fun together. This is what really upset Yudhishthira at first. I told that story in one of the, when was it? Not long ago. All of them having fun. They faced each other, they let the blood go. Up there, up where? Beyond, in a field of transcendence, none of that exists. So first you need to be established in yoga. Yoga sta kuru karmani. Established in yoga, established in a state of union. So when you established in a state of union, there are no separation between you, your desire, your aspiration. Everything, you, your goal, your desire are one. When that will come into fruition is none of your business. None of your business. Why? Because this is Ranubandhana is at work. Accounts are being paid. Bills are being settled. See, no, the other way around. Whatever. Bills are being paid, accounts being settled. So, feeling happy when someone is beyond the range of your means in like ionic way, right, is an understanding that only consciousness enjoys here. And only consciousness is in a pickle, no one else. So this is a kind of a freeing realization. Siddhartha is a classic, Hermann Hesse, just gift to humanity. You know? Right? The Shravana wants to experience life, wants to see what's the big deal is about. Right? Comes and throws himself into life to taste it. No? All of you familiar, I trust. Right? All of you familiar. Come on, this book set many of us on track. No? Siddhartha, please read it, Hermann Hesse. Classic. Did he? No, he didn't win. Did he win Nobel Prize? I don't know, for literature. I think he did, right? Yes, yes. But Siddhartha is a masterpiece. Simplicity of expression, right? Is a great reminder as well. It sets the spirit free, clearly. It has the capacity to set one free from one personal misery. And this is where we fall victim to a pattern. And that Yogastha Kuru Karmani and the pattern are interconnected. You see? Unless there is yoga, pattern is at work. Pattern keeps reminding ourselves, keeping us in place. You see? It has this nasty feeling of keeping you in place. Know your place. Know your place. You know? Down. Know your place. Treating you like a dog. No. No. This is where you have to rebel. You see? You have to stand up and rebel against that. With the entire force of your being. Because that's not your condition. It's the story of the lion who lost his lionhood and became a donkey. Because he was raised by donkeys. You know this story. It's an Indian classic. So this is the first part with regard to manifestation. With regard to creativity and death and the interconnection now, as all the three are linked. You see, that creativity is obviously, and we talked about it, and you, I'm sure, somewhere heard this before, that creativity is a natural state. It's that state when we are composed and there is this fullness already experienced and there is this bubbling, frothing. It's a state. Creativity doesn't mean someone is full of ideas running around having this pilot and the Bible and knocking on the door of every producer and is full of beans, you know. It doesn't mean it's creativity. It's another part, you know, to convince everyone that, you know, that you can make some really really kind of like, you can sell something that is there. This is skills in its own right. So we can touch on that. But creativity is a natural state. What covers creativity? Why don't we experience creativity? Because, again, this pattern, this habitual pattern, now in conjunction with that what is thrown into the formation of the identity. As that rings the bell? How the identity here is a conglomerate. If the identity was just like kind of a pure identity, like I'm identifying with this body-mind organism conglomerate, it's a piece of cake, you see? This is a kind of a sterile picture. The real thing is the vasanas. The real thing is a content that it comes with. And that content is made, solidified by interlacing, laying over of that what forms this sense of identity, informs this, and incorporates into it all this what we call these patterns that we are better off without. Particularly when it comes to something that impedes sense of wellness in any way. In other words, there are some kind of imperfection in our ahamkaric field, yogically speaking. The sense of identity here is jeopardized, compromised to some degree. You see? It's one feels somehow, not good enough. The ahamkara is this insulation, right? It's this principle responsible for individuation, but it's also what comprises the fullness of that, right? It's this independence, interdependence, healthy boundaries, whilst at the same time constantly connecting. This is healthy ahamkara. Strong ahamkara has no problem to connect. It doesn't feel invaded. It doesn't feel impeded from any contact, any connection. No? It can have someone entering one's field. It doesn't feel invaded. At the same time, it also has healthy boundaries. We're not talking about psychological behavior. We're talking about something much more fundamental, isn't it? So, whenever there is, let's say, impediment in that field, it is because some traumatic experiences, some kind of experiences that informed us, perhaps early on, perhaps later on, I don't know. When it gained this identity of its own. Why? Because it's now absorbed into the identity of whom we consider ourselves to be. I call it a pact. See, whenever the pact is created, then that traumatic experience, that whatever we, at, let's say, mental level, let's say, conscious level, we are like, no, I don't want that. But deep down, I cannot live without it. Like, one can talk oneself out all the time that, I'm done with it. I'm like, but when one left alone, in deep honesty, completely, when there's no one to share, no one to tell, it's like just me. Well, it's part of me. It's me. See? Because it's incorporated. It entered that state of conglomerate. So this is why the loosening up of the samskaric field is so important. We give it a variety of different kind of language. One of them is unplugging is important. Yes, dangerous, yes. Yeah, I agree. Yes, it's tricky. This unplugging, to what degree this unplugging will take. Some people unplug and then they're clueless, right? Lost in nirvana, right? Collision with consciousness, right? Whatever. But that what creates the tremendous opportunity where in that unplugging, loosening taking place. And if the ahamkaric field is not damaged too much, then tremendous job can be, tremendous realizations can be made. You see? This is why, and this is very well known to you in your, however brief, however long encounters, right? That maybe more brief than otherwise. You know that I have always stood for very attentively work with individuality. Remember, I was always from day one of the teachers who never bashed individuality, right? Even back when it was like, talk of town, right? I stuck for individuality. Kind of like almost at the expense maybe of rubbing the shoulders with those who made careers much faster. Because that's what a lot of people wanted to hear at the time. Because it somehow was a collectively shared consensus in spiritual community. That you have to get rid of yourself, then you are Brahman. You get rid of yourself, then all what is left is God. But there is, we know that this is not true at all. So therefore, painstakingly reestablishing what the individual here represents. Finally, sort of like now, I'm enjoying teaching this philosophy because the ground was laid for over many years, because I can't just come and start speaking from here. It has to be, at least at the level of speech, ground had to be laid. You see? So the incorporation of this into one's field of identity is what creates this sense of some chip somewhere, some sense of imperfection, some sense of impediment, like that we live under the shadow. And it can be more dramatic, less dramatic, and with some people it begins to express itself really strongly somatically. With others more, let's say, on an emotional level, mental level, one would argue, wouldn't it all express somatically sooner than later? I would say yes, but not necessarily at the same speed, in the same way. Someone will get ill much quicker, and maybe that's a blessing, because the body would communicate through the illness something is wrong. It will arrest someone in their tracks and force them to change, force them to do something about it. But if the body doesn't, if it's not expressed somatically, one will suffer psychological torment, all forms of insecurity, you see? So this is when it comes to the creativity. Creativity is a natural state which is basically impeded by these layers. Once this is recedes, the creativity simply flourishes as a fountain. It's a state. In that state, and I also would like to begin offering this kind of work in the coming future, where we actually also introduce the practical aspects of just showing this in a gestural manner through some implementation, like literally working with sound together. Not that we don't work with sound at the transcendental level, at the level of the field, but on the side as a workshop. Maybe like having brushes, big brushes, and like something that you can actually try and see how actually everyone can do this and derive great joy out of it. So that state is then translates into everything. Everything one begins to do is done out of creativity. You cannot help it. So this kind of writer's block or the knot is because something is holding back, because there are these layers, psychic impressions are still causing that contraction. The fear of death, okay, what's fear of death? What level of the fear of death we speak about here? Everyone here is driven by that same propensity to maintain life force in the body. We are wired, programmed like that. right? Even in the scriptures, in the Upanishadic scriptures, in the sage, the reflex for self-preservation is intact. So, in other words, even in the one who is completely lives at unfathomable, let's say, level of consciousness, there's a reflex for self-preservation. If like brace, everyone will brace. Not going to sit there in samadhi, not samadhi, in lotus. Everyone is bracing us like Brahman is everywhere. I'm Brahman. Let's go and run for a cover, man. We'll talk about it later. So, so what fear of death? That kind of fear? It's normal. You know me, I like samurais. Not, of course Japanese culture is full of contradictions and this and that. It's a culture of extremes. Something there is maybe my own kind of like, but there's something else as well. Of course, we could say that it was hijacked, it was, some say it's a perversion of the Buddhist values, but there is also the culture of tea. So to me, this was never separate. The culture of the warrior, the culture of tea, aesthetics. So if we allow ourselves, let's say that example, samurai, when they enter the battle, they don't enter battle because they're not afraid to die, in a sense that they have courage. They've mastered that, you see? They've mastered that. So just pluck up the courage to live. So everyone has that. It's a legitimate thing, the fear of death. Yes, you mentioned something that whenever you don't feel the plummest in the body, right? Whenever you feel immunity jeopardized, suddenly there's this sense of weakness, right? It's also natural. Even the great warrior becomes like a wounded wolf or dog, needs to crawl in a hole and lick the wounds. He's not walking around there. He's like, needs to heal first. Feel better. Again, give yourself, a slack. We all feel like that when we're not on top of the world, when we don't feel our plumbest, we feel less of ourselves. Of course, it takes tremendous discipline to remain in, let's say, that quality that only being aware, no matter what you experience. It's a tremendous quality. It takes tremendous discipline. So I'm not saying like, why don't you do that? No, this is a, I would say, byproduct of some funneled practice. Grace is also would greatly add to that quality. But connect these dots now. Connect all these dots together. And you will see this is all interconnected. And how does that relate to you, to your personal story? See? So, and that where you are positioned to teach this should also serve as a form of self-discipline. You see? Soon as you feel this, tamasic qualities begin to dominate somehow. All these ideas of, one way or another, it's tamaguna begins to settle. This viscosity, heaviness, this somehow, lack of change. So you need to work, you need to know what to do.
It's one of the reasons I think I like to teach.
Yes, of course, it keeps you more in shape. Yeah, exactly. So then you have to now walk your talk, right? You have to rise, see? Repeatedly, so that you feel like you feel keeping with Dharma. So then you will feel how the power is given to the one who takes the stand. Soon as one takes the stand, the power is given to them. It works like that, see? So how someone when someone cops out, no, that like I cannot do this, I cannot do this. Then there's no power. It's only weakness. But when you rise on the occasion, you know, like you lead the army. Even if you're sick, weak, tired, this, that, you still lead the army. And then suddenly all these devotees and all this, come on, let's chip in, let's help. This guy means business. Okay, so let's, no, it's like that. It's like that. These qualities are there. They don't like to be given for nothing. They're given to those who show some value. I'm here for that. So no matter what the circumstances, I'm not going to be the one who is going to be just, this is what I said, do not allow anything that brings you down. Nothing that brings you down. Break down that chain of, that pattern that keeps you prisoner of this conditioning. You are free, born free. Okay?